Welcome to the Past in Pictures channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. In post-war Japan's tense political climate, the death of Inajiro Asanuma, leader of the Japan Socialist Party, deeply affected the country after he was struck during a public event on October 12, 1960, signaling the era's sharp ideological tension. Aloha Airlines Flight 243 became known worldwide after suffering major structural damage during its route on April 28, 1988, when part of the aircraft's roof tore away, leading to the loss of a flight attendant and driving changes in civilian aviation safety standards. Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944, known as D-Day, one of the largest amphibious operations in history, which began the liberation of Western Europe from German government control and proved decisive for the course of World War II. Landing ships carrying troops and vehicles arrived at the port of Incheon on September 15, 1950, during the height of the Korean War, starting a decisive United States operation that changed the course of the conflict and aimed to push back socialist bloc advances on the Korean peninsula. The brothers Johnny and Robert Eck, photographed in the early 1920s in the United States, reflect a time when people with physical disabilities often performed in circuses and shows, a context intensified by public fascination with so-called freak shows in that era. Lo Man Hung, only 12 years old at the time, became South Vietnam's youngest photojournalist in 1968 during the intensifying Vietnam War, a conflict that reshaped Asian geopolitics and affected civilian life and media worldwide. The slogan, "We won't fight another rich man's war," stood out during protests against the Vietnam War, when young Americans questioned sending troops to Southeast Asia and highlighted social inequality and the human cost of that period. The construction of the new transcontinental railroad in Nevada in 1868 was a turning point in United States territorial integration, but it brought serious consequences for indigenous peoples, whose lands were taken over and whose ways of life were drastically changed. The procedure of trimming a lioness's claws in London in 1935 reveals how exotic animals were handled in zoos between the wars, when public displays and intensive management were common, reflecting the values and ethical limits of the time. Eunice Padfield became famous during the July 4, 1905 celebrations in Pueblo, Colorado, performing risky jumps on horseback before an excited crowd, illustrating the early 20th century fascination with public spectacles and extreme popular culture challenges. Horace Riddler, a British variety performer famous in the 1940s, became known as the Great Omi, or the Zebra Man, because of his extensive body tattoos, becoming a symbol of freak show culture after World War II, a notable part of popular entertainment at the time. The entry of Oakland's first black woman into the police force in 1970 marked a major break in racial and gender barriers within United States public safety institutions, symbolizing progress in civil rights and equal access to professional opportunity. The separation caused by the Berlin Wall, built in 1961, split families and friends for decades, as shown by the reunion of two brothers on Christmas Eve 1963, highlighting the human impact of Cold War policies on the German population. Bread and soup distribution symbolized a charitable response to the economic crisis triggered after the 1929 New York stock market crash, marking the Great Depression, when millions in the United States faced hunger and widespread unemployment. A test at the Capiston Yar Range on August 27, 1958, marked an important chapter in the space race, when the Soviet Union launched the R-5A rocket and returned a dog safely to the ground, advancing the ability to send living beings into space and recover them. An iconic figure in British music, Amy Winehouse became a symbol of modern soul and jazz after gaining international fame for her distinctive voice in the 2000s. But records mentioning her in the 1990s point to the rise of new talent in the English music scene. Fidel Castro paid tribute at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington during his official visit to the United States in April 1959, just weeks after leading the Cuban Revolution, initially signaling diplomatic outreach before tensions between the United States and Cuba escalated. A Navajo man portrayed as Nyanezgani was recorded in the United States in 1908, during a period when cultural assimilation policies pressured indigenous peoples. Preserving traditional practices and stories stood as resistance to imposed Euro-American values. Barricades raised in Paris streets during the French Revolution of 1848 symbolized popular struggle against the July monarchy, ending Louis Philippe's reign and proclaiming the Second Republic, a key event in the political history of France and Europe. Westward expansion in the United States accelerated after the Civil War, especially in areas near the Transcontinental Railroad, whose construction was moving quickly around 1867 in the Kansas territories, symbolizing conquest and settlement of the country's interior. Rum-based mixed drinks like the Navy Grog and the Mai Tai became especially popular in the United States after World War II, boosting rum at parties and social gatherings, shaping cultural trends, and strengthening brands like Bacardi as a symbol of that social energy. American General George S. Patton stood out in North Africa in 1943, leading Allied forces in decisive World War II operations on the African continent, a crucial step that helped set the stage for later actions against the German government. Royal Naval Air Service pilots faced major operational challenges in flight schools during World War I, when accidents, including BE-2 bombers snagged in wires, exposed weak infrastructure and the pioneering nature of military aviation. American children reciting the Pledge of Allegiance in a classroom around 1960 symbolized stronger patriotism during the Cold War, when schools in the United States increased civic routines to reinforce national values and political identity. Young women began taking up new public spaces in the United States after World War II, reflecting social behavior changes in the 1950s, especially in cities like Los Angeles, where economic growth fueled consumption and modernized social customs. Sami families kept their traditions amid changes in Lapland, a region that by 1917 was already feeling the effects of Finland's independence from Russian rule, highlighting the challenge of preserving indigenous identities through political shifts. At the height of the Cold War, Los Alamos, referenced in 1974, was firmly established as one of the United States' leading scientific research centers, central to developing strategic technologies that shaped international rivalries and global politics of the time. Usain Bolt became a global benchmark when he ran the 100-meter semifinal at the Rio Olympics in 2016, making the event one of the most iconic moments in recent track and field and reinforcing the Olympics as a stage for historic achievements in global sport. Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney, and John Lennon took part in the famous 1968 photo shoot known as Mad Day Out, during the cultural surge of the 1960s in England that cemented the Beatles as global symbols of youth and musical change. American film stars James Dean and Elizabeth Taylor appeared together at the Texas State Fair in 1955 during the peak of Hollywood's major studios, when events like this strengthened celebrity culture and brought audiences closer to Golden Age idols. Recognized as one of baseball's greatest icons, Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's home run record on April 8, 1974, a historic milestone that challenged social barriers and cemented his legacy, symbolizing perseverance through hardship and change in the United States. Commercial aviation took bold steps when, in 1936, the Pan Am Martin Clipper crossed oceans in unprecedented luxury, offering comfort and polish to wealthy passengers, and signaling an era when flying became a symbol of status and technological innovation. The opening of the Panama Canal in 1914 was a major advance for global shipping by linking the Atlantic and Pacific through a strategic route, reducing travel time and costs, and strengthening the United States' influence in the region. The Lincoln Highway Trip campaign between New York and San Francisco highlighted early long-distance road travel in the United States, a project launched in 1913 that pushed highway infrastructure, expanded access to cars, and transformed nationwide mobility. California Street, one of San Francisco's most iconic streets, showcased the peak of the city's streetcar lines in 1964, helping make it famous worldwide, strengthening its role in urban transit and shaping the growth of central areas. The large telephone tower in Stockholm, recorded in 1890, symbolized Sweden's communications leap during the Second Industrial Revolution, when phone networks began linking cities, driving urban growth, and speeding up economic and social exchange. In 1980, the Bieszczady Mountains served as the setting for patrols by the Polish border guard, who used horses to reach hard-to-cross terrain. The soldier and the animal share the clear water of a stream, reinforcing the bond of trust needed to guard the border. The rise of personal computers in the 1980s, such as the Atari 800, sparked a technology revolution that changed work methods, education, and home entertainment, making computing more widely accessible and fueling global digital culture. The Euphonia automaton, described as a machine that could imitate human speech using plates and an artificial tongue, represents a remarkable 19th-century technical attempt to bring mechanical devices closer to human communication, foreshadowing later debates about artificial intelligence. Orson Welles gained worldwide recognition with the release of Citizen Kane, a 1941 RKO Radio Pictures production that revolutionized storytelling and filmmaking techniques, shaping modern cinema and influencing generations of filmmakers across many countries. The use of the Kodak Box Brownie starting in 1900 transformed photography by letting ordinary people, especially women, capture personal moments without professional help, launching amateur photography and making everyday family life easier to record. New York City's buzz in 1915 points to the start of the automobile era in major cities, when companies like the Complete Motorcar Company pushed urban and industrial change that dramatically reshaped mobility and everyday habits. The California gold rush drew thousands seeking fortune throughout the 19th century, and the blue gravel mine south of Eureka symbolizes that intense economic and migration wave, contributing strongly to the rapid development of the American West. An archaeological discovery in Aventicum in 1939 brought artifacts from the ancient Roman capital of Helvetia to light, revealing important details about Roman urban life in Switzerland. The find expanded knowledge of the province and advanced studies of the Roman Empire. Workers at the Karman factory in Osnabrück, Germany, were on the job during the European auto industry boom in 1969, a period when the Volkswagen Beetle became one of the world's most popular cars, a symbol of the post-war era and mass mobility. The Photomat drive-through booth, promoted in 1960 as the fastest way to develop memories onto 4x6 photo paper, symbolized the rise of consumer photography in the United States, expanding access to everyday picture-making and fueling the era's instant image culture. Cesar Cardini, credited with inventing the Caesar salad, gained international attention by creating the recipe in 1924 in Tijuana, Mexico, during a period when European chefs were moving toward the United States, influencing global cuisine by blending flavors and techniques. The start of the Carl's Jr. chain goes back to the small hot dog cart opened by Carl Karcher in 1941, when the United States was still feeling the effects of the Great Depression, reflecting the rise of family businesses that still shape the American fast food model today. The car, identified as an early French limousine from 1910, represents the growth of France's auto industry in the early 20th century, when Europe was locking in technical innovations and the automobile shifted from an exotic luxury to a symbol of status and modern life. Telephone workers in Richmond, Virginia in 1884 show women's pioneering role in United States communications, reflecting social and economic change driven by the growth of switchboards in the second half of the 19th century. Workers make hats in an Estonian workshop in 1972 when the country was part of the Soviet Union, shaping centralized planning in the textile industry and limiting access to Western goods, which pushed local handmade creativity. British athletes recognized as national swimming champions pose in November 1919, shortly after World War I ended, wearing swimsuits that were innovative for the time, reflecting a sports and cultural shift with more openness to women's participation. Photographs like those from Achille Serre Limited, taken at places such as 37 Funch Street in London, help show the social impact of the 1920s, when women moved into jobs traditionally held by men, including using motorcycles for deliveries, pushing progress in gender equality. Isabelle Adjani rose as an icon of French cinema throughout the 1970s, a period shaped by strong cultural renewal after 1968, when European film explored new forms of expression and social debate, boosting her career and opening space for women in leading roles. Chris Farley, a comedian whose career took off in the 1990s, studied communications at Marquette University before becoming a standout on Saturday Night Live. His college background played an important role in his artistic development and helped set up his later national fame. Ruth Disney appears next to her brother in 1906, at a time when immigration and urban growth in the United States shaped new families and opportunities, especially for young people, providing context for understanding this family's later path. Gathered around simple tables, immigrants celebrate their first Christmas in the United States in 1920 at the iconic Ellis Island, the entry point for millions seeking better lives during the peak of early 20th century migration waves. On November 16, 1942, Miss Beth Pitt walks with her fawn star message in Midtown Manhattan, showing an unusual everyday scene while the city lived under the impact of World War II and the United States went through major social change. Teen television stars in the United States gathered in 1983 to celebrate Justine Bateman's 17th birthday, when shows like Square Pegs and Family Ties were getting strong ratings during what was often called the golden age of sitcoms in the United States. Chess pieces made of ivory and ebony, crafted in Italy in 1790, illustrate 18th century European craftsmanship during the Enlightenment and growing cultural exchange, showing how board games could signal social and intellectual status. The Palais Garnier, photographed in 1880, was designed by Charles Garnier and opened 4 years earlier, becoming a symbol of the Second French Empire's architectural splendor, a central stage for the arts in Paris, and a world reference for opera and classical ballet. Ice cream street vendors, like the Italian one mentioned in 1877, symbolized the growth of street commerce in 19th century European cities, making treats once limited to elites more accessible to children and spreading new urban eating habits. Francis Rafferty stood out in Hollywood during the 1940s, when American film had major worldwide cultural influence, especially during World War II and its ripple effects on the entertainment industry. Workers such as chimney sweeps were common sights in London during the Industrial Revolution, a time that made the city one of the world's largest urban centers while also exposing the harsh social realities faced by working-class people. Engine Alley, a street in Dublin in the early 20th century, reflects Irish urban life when the country was still part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, a setting shaped by growing industrialization and heavy rural migration that drove deep social change. Shops like the one marked by the sign AL Store were common in working-class neighborhoods of 19th century British cities, when industrial growth pulled large numbers of workers into urban areas, driving social change and the rise of small local stores. The luxury ocean liner La Jeunesse ran aground on the California coast in 1970, quickly turning into a tourist attraction before being taken apart, an episode that shows the link between tourism and major maritime incidents in the 20th century, and left a mark on the region's naval history. Workers maintaining the Brooklyn Bridge on December 3, 1915, symbolized the ongoing focus on urban infrastructure in New York, a major economic center, during the rapid industrial growth of the early 20th century in the United States. The British manufacturer BSA became a major name in the motorcycle industry soon after World War II in 1947, during the United Kingdom rebuilding period and the search for affordable transportation, helping make motorcycles a common part of everyday life in England. The historic Ocean Park Pier in Santa Monica hosted theaters, entertainment venues, and popular attractions from the early 20th century on, reflecting the growth of mass leisure in the United States and helping make California's coast a major tourist and cultural hub. Older car seats, as highlighted by the phrase vintage car seat, reflect auto industry standards used from the 1950s through the 1970s, a period when vehicle safety was still limited and the first child safety belts marked major progress. A man prepares food outdoors in Ontario around 1910, a time when Canada was going through intense rural settlement and European immigrant integration, strengthening traditional farming practices and helping local communities grow. The use of linotype machines at the Anthony Horton and Sons department store around 1935 marks a key stage in modernizing commercial printing, speeding up newspaper and catalog production, and reshaping written communication in that era. Seth Kinman, a well-known California hunter and trapper, gifted President Andrew Johnson a chair made from a grizzly bear in 1865, a gesture that highlighted Old West symbolism during the United States rebuilding period after the Civil War. Simple costumes and spooky masks worn by children reflect early 20th century North American Halloween traditions, when the holiday became an important part of United States culture by strengthening community ties and encouraging children's creativity. Artists and bands from the United States drove global pop culture in the late 1980s by launching major national and international tours, as suggested by the reference to US Tour 1987. At the height of youth music culture, these tours influenced fashion, behavior, and artistic styles. Stores like Almacen's Bond and El Pavillon El Roble show the commercial energy of Latin American cities after the war, a time shaped by the rise of mass consumer culture, expanding urban networks, and the arrival of international brands like Philips. A colossal crowd of 300,000 spectators fills Wembley Stadium during the 1923 Football Association Cup final. The attendance far exceeded the official capacity of 5,000, creating a historic scene of chaos on the field. The epic event marked the sporting opening of the iconic home of soccer. A child's first haircut in 1955 is captured in a moment of care and discovery. The barber uses a mirror to show the result to the young customer who looks closely at the new appearance. The scene reflects everyday childhood rituals and the social role of barbershops at the time. A detailed display of osteological pieces arranged in 1927 shows scientific interest in anthropology and human evolution in the early 20th century. The record shows a researcher handling a tray of selected specimens for academic study. The image reflects the museum filing and display methods of that era. Winston Churchill prepares to speak to Allied forces at the ancient theater of Carthage in 1943. The historic setting in Tunisia served as a stage to motivate troops during the North Africa campaign in the Second World War. The record highlights the scale of the moment amid centuries-old ruins. A woman handles long frozen underwear on an outdoor clothesline during the harsh winter of 1940. The cotton garments look stiff like boards because of the extremely low temperatures of the time. The image playfully captures the household challenges people faced in past decades. Children played freely in the streets of Paris in 1920, at a time when motor vehicle traffic was still limited and shared the city space with pedestrians. This everyday scene reflects the shift in mobility in the French capital before modern cars fully took over. The inside of the Apollo 1 command module cabin shows heavy soot marks after a sudden fire during tests in 1967. The launch pad accident led to the loss of 3 astronauts, pushing the National Aeronautics and Space Administration to make major safety reviews before continuing the space program. A striking image shows the power of the Okeechobee hurricane that hit Puerto Rico in 1928. A 10-foot piece of wood went completely through the trunk of a palm tree, serving as a silent proof of the violent winds that devastated the region and caused immeasurable property damage. Aircraft fly over Mount Vesuvius during its last recorded eruption in 1944. The volcano, famous for devastating Pompeii in '79, sent up columns of ash and smoke during the Second World War, creating a rare scene where natural forces and human events overlapped. Julia Child changed American television cooking by presenting sophisticated dishes with ease and humor. In 1964, behind the scenes of The French Chef showed a technical crew carefully positioned on the floor so they would not interfere with the set, keeping the full focus on the chef's teaching. Young Lieutenant Edwin Wright, nicknamed Lucky, points to a hole made by defensive fire in the propeller of his Republic P-47 Thunderbolt fighter in Belgium in 1944. At 19 years old, the pilot returned after a severe hit during an operational mission, showing the risks faced by Allied aircrews in the Second World War. Player Bobby Charlton rests in a hospital bed days after surviving the Munich air disaster that struck the Manchester United team in 1958. The image captures a moment of vulnerability and physical recovery for one of the greatest soccer legends after an event that shaped the sport's history. A protective mask with chainmail was essential gear for French tank crews in 1918 during the First World War. The equipment aimed to protect the face from metal fragments and splatter caused by hits on the vehicle's armor. The year 1944 marked the consolidation of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's massive fingerprint files, a global reference for criminal identification and national security, reflecting the United States' effort to expand internal control and monitoring during World War II.